This video is brought to you by Captivating History. The mythology of the Norse cultures was deeply rooted in Scandinavian paganism and continued to pave its way while Christianity spread throughout the region. The tales of deities and creatures are an apt representation of the Norse lifestyle of the early Middle Ages. The gods wield swords and hammers, run through cold, barren landscapes, and find an enchanting calm in the woods. The Norse pantheon can be categorized into two groups: Aesir, the gods of war and government, and Vanir, the gods of wisdom and fertility. Unlike other mythologies, these two groups are treated as contemporaries, which hints at the relationship between different clans at the time. The two unify after the Aesir-Vanir War and form an integrated pantheon. There is also a third category of beings, known as the Jötnar, which are neither gods nor humans, but reside in that precarious threshold between humans and higher beings. Here are 19 major gods and goddesses of Norse mythology. Ymir. Ymir is the primeval being of the Norse creation myth and is said to be the father of all Jötnar. Although he is not always strictly categorized as a god in the Aesir-Vanir tradition, he was the first being from whom everything flowered and who brought about the genesis of the gods, goddesses, and other mythical beings in the universe. When Bor married Bestla, 3 sons were born: Ve, Vili, and Odin. The 3 gods killed Ymir and proceeded to create the earth. Ymir's corpse served as fodder for the creation of the seas, oceans, mountains, heavens, clouds, and Midgard, the middle realm. Odin. The most revered god in the entire pantheon, Odin was the king of the Aesir. A seeker of knowledge, Odin often goes to great lengths in his hunt for information and wisdom. Odin is a complex and contradictory figure with an angry, shadowy side to counter his well-intentioned pursuits. For instance, he has a penchant for engaging in wars. Because he is such a complex deity, he is associated with wisdom and healing as well as death and frenzy. He is an ancestral royal figure, as he fathered many sons like the gods Thor and Baldur. Frigg. Considered the queen of the Aesir pantheon, Frigg was the goddess of the sky. As the wife of Odin, she was associated with fertility, motherhood, and similar domestic matters. Frigg is often conflated with Fjorgyn, but academic discourse is divided on the issue. The two were possibly a single figure, but as is often the case with folk tradition, they were referred to in different forms in various sources. Thor. As the god of thunder, a formidable warrior, and the foremost example of courage, Thor was the alpha male the Germanic tribes looked up to. His strength was further amplified by some of the accessories he carried: his iron gloves, belt, and most importantly, the hammer Mjolnir. Contrary to this vast warlike skill set, he was associated with fertility and agriculture. As the god of the skies, he was responsible for the rain that was necessary for the crops. He was the son of Odin and Fjorgyn, or Joro. Ullr. Ullr was the god of hunting and hand-to-hand combat. He is also associated with archery. As a stepson of Thor and the husband of Skadi, the goddess of winter, he was an exceptional skier as well. He is also considered the god of skiing, and modern-day Sweden has several places that pay homage to the Norse god. While his appearance in pagan myth is revered for his skiing skills, his existence in literary evidence is quite sparse. However, according to evidence, he was probably a major god in early Germanic paganism. Baldur. The god of light and purity, Baldur was a wise and gracious being whose beauty was praiseworthy even among the divine. His physical attributes were nothing short of exquisite, and his fair and radiant personality only augmented those features. His abode, Breidablik in Asgard, was the most intricate hall of the Norse world. He later built Ringorni, the greatest ship ever made, which was also used for his funeral procession. He was the son of Odin and Frigg. Tyr. Tyr was the hero and the most courageous warrior of the Norse world. Often remembered as the purveyor of justice and oaths, Tyr was the god of war. The origins of this deity are somewhat obscure. According to some myths, he was the son of Odin, whereas other sources claim that he was the son of Ymir. Nevertheless, he remains one of the oldest and most important gods of mythology. Vidar. The silent god of vengeance, Vidar was often associated with revenge because of his silent demeanor and his hostile tendencies toward the killer of his father. He followed the warrior's code of subjecting oneself to long periods of silence, called the ritual of vengeance, as a means of concentrating on the mission at hand. This is why Vidar is associated with the idea of vengeance. The son of Odin and Frigg, a Jötun, Vidar would finally avenge his father's death by killing the wolf Fenrir. Loki. In the Norse pantheon, Loki was seen as the mischievous god who tricks everyone. Although he was not always fueled by menace or evil, his whimsical actions could end up being cruel and taxing. Because of his actions, tragedies befell several gods, and some even lost their lives. His scheming brings about the accidental death of Baldur. His son, Fenrir, kills Odin, and his other son, a serpent named Jormungandr, poisons Thor. Loki's greatest power was his ability to shapeshift, which aided him in his schemes and adventures. Hod. Hod, the god of darkness, was the twin brother of Baldur. His mother made sure everything in the universe would never hurt or harm Baldur, except for mistletoe. Loki found out about Baldur's weakness and made an arrow out of mistletoe. Hod is remembered for being misled by Loki into shooting the mistletoe arrow. The arrow brought about the death of Baldur. As a result, Odin and Rindir, a giantess, gave birth to Vala, who grew up in a single day and killed Hod. Hermod. Hermod was considered the messenger of the gods. Odin contracted him after the death of Baldur. Since he was the fastest god in all of Asgard, he agreed to ride to the underworld. He took Odin's horse, Sleipnir, and rode for 9 days, finally arriving face to face with Hel, the goddess of the underworld. He begged her to release Baldur, but she set the conditions that all creation, dead or alive, must weep for Baldur. So everyone wept except for Thor, whom many believe was Loki in disguise. Heimdall. Heimdall was the guardian of Asgard, the home of the Aesir pantheon. His eyesight let him see beyond the usual line of sight and traverse areas hidden to the ordinary being. His hearing allowed him to acknowledge dangers before they arrived. He stood guard at Asgard and used his horn to call attention to intruders. Forseti. Forseti was the Norse god of law, justice, and reconciliation. He presided over disputes in the Norse world. Onlookers could see the radiance of his house from a far distance. In Frisian culture, Forseti is associated with an island between Frisia and Denmark, where people used to worship him. Bragi. Bragi is the Norse god of poetry. In Asgard, he was considered the bard of Valhalla and could be found in the magnificent hall of Valhalla. Considering historical accounts, he was possibly the derivation or deification of Bragi Bodisson, a 9th century poet who served in the courts of Ragnar Lodbrok. According to the Prose Edda, written by Snorri Sturluson, he is renowned for wisdom and most of all for fluency of speech and skill with words. Idun. Idun was the goddess of eternal youthfulness and rejuvenation. She possessed fruits that bestowed immortality, and it was due to these fruits that Asgard, one of the 9 worlds inhabited by gods, maintained its love for longevity. It is no surprise that she was the wife of Bragi, the aforementioned poet of Asgard. Her beautiful features and long flowing golden hair were truly worthy of a poet's envy. Idun was kidnapped by the shape-shifting giant Jazi with the help of Loki. However, she was also returned with Loki's help. Njord. Njord, the god of seas and wealth, was the greatest of the Vanir gods and was later included in the collective Aesir-Vanir pantheon. He was considered the richest of all the Norse gods, and the Vikings deified and revered him as a great seafarer. Njord married Skadi, a giantess who was allowed to choose her husband based on legs and feet alone. She mistook Njord's feet for Baldur's. Their union happened before the birth of 2 Norse deities, Freyr and Freyja. They were born to Njord and his sister wife. Unfortunately, Njord and Skadi's marriage did not work out, and they had to part ways. Freyr. Freyr was the chief deity in matters regarding sexuality and fertility. As the god of fertility, his powers extended from the minuscule, domestic matters, to major events. He is often associated with agriculture, peace, and virility. As the deity of boundless sexual and financial fervor, he was worshipped on relevant occasions, like marriages and harvests. He is also known for his boar, Gullinbursti, who often served as the symbol of the fertility god. Freyja. The goddess of love and destiny, Freyja is often associated with fertility, beauty, and war. Since she was the daughter of the wealthy Njord, she was also considered glamorous and luxurious. Her representation portrays her as a thrill-seeker. She was the seer of the Norse religion, as she could see the threads of destiny and manipulate them by magic. She could alter the futures of other beings. Some scholars believe that the two siblings, Freyr and Freyja, eventually coalesced into Odin and Frigg. Hel. The Norse goddess of the netherworld was Hel. She was the most powerful deity in the underworld. She was said to be even stronger than Odin. As the daughter of Loki, Hel was mostly indifferent to the matters of the living and the dead. She is often depicted as selfish, greedy, and self-absorbed. The Germanic concept of hell was a little different from the Judeo-Christian idea that reigns supreme today. Hell is considered a place of fire and eternal damnation in modern religions. But for the Germanic tribes, hell was full of monsters like Fenrir, who killed Odin, and Jormungandr, who killed Thor. Hel presided over all these monsters and decided the fate of all who arrived in the underworld. Some scholars believe that Hel is not an individual but instead refers to a place. The Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda serve as some of the most valuable resources for people interested in Norse mythology. Today, the Eddas and sagas of the Old Norse inform and enlighten us to the ways and means of the Vikings and their predecessors. Extracted from manuscripts, folklore, and archaeological knowledge, these tales continue to charm and beguile us. The Scottish writer and historian Thomas Carlyle breaks down the fascination with Norse mythology in the following words. I think Scandinavian paganism, to us here, is more interesting than any other. It is, for one thing, the latest. It continued in these regions of Europe till the 11th century. 800 years ago, the Norwegians were still worshippers of Odin. It is interesting also as the creed of our fathers, the men whose blood still runs in our veins, whom doubtless we still resemble in so many ways. We hope you enjoyed this video on Top 19 Norse Gods and Goddesses. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Also, grab your free mythology bundle ebook while it's still available. The link is in the description.